Your Excellency Maxwell Kwezalamba, Commissioner for Economic Affairs, other commissioners of the African Union, Carlos Lopez, Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission of Africa, dear friend, heads of regional economic communities, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends. I want to thank you very much for this very warm welcome from you, Commissioner, and from you, Carlos. I must say to you on a personal note that I feel very much at home in Addis and in Africa. 32 years ago, I opened the first Swedish embassy in Zimbabwe. I was advisor to Olof Palme, in my view, a very progressive, forward-looking politician in Europe, and through him I was in contact with several of the liberation movements in Africa. I was Undersecretary of Humanitarian Affairs, and here in Addis we had several humanitarian humanitarian conferences on the situation at that enormously tragic period. You might remember 1992-93, and that's where I also built a friendship to Prime Minister Meles Zenawi, who played a very important role at that time. And in this context, I would like to also tell you how much we miss him. He was a towering figure in African politics, and I'm glad to have been one of his friends. And then most recently, I was mediating the Darfur conflict together with the great African, with strong links to the African Union, of course, Salim Ahmed Salim. And I was proud to report to the African Union Peace and Security Council together with him. And I also took him along to New York to report together to the United Nations Security Council. So I have my heart in African affairs. I have my heart in cooperation between United Nations and the African Union. And I think this gathering today is an example of what kind of cooperation we could have. And I would very much like to make this a living mechanism, a mechanism that makes a difference for the people of Africa, and that we can look to this mechanism as a practical device to translate our words and our reports to facts, positive facts on the ground, because that is what our work is all about, isn't it? And that's what you and we all want to see. So I'm extremely proud to be here with you, and also to come after a great an African woman, Asha Rose Migiro, who was having my position, the position I have in the UN, and to follow her in this role as co-chairing the regional coordination mechanism. I also want to tell you that I met the chairperson, Dr. Dlamini Zuma, several times here in Addis this summer, also in Bamako at the conference in Mali, an extremely important issue, which is not on the agenda here today. But we had also great conversations there, and in New York recently, where I was attending a meeting between her and the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who sends his best and warmest regards to all of you. And what I remember from that conversation very strongly was that, first of all, we went through the different crises in Africa, and unfortunately there are too many of them. But then she said very pointedly that Africa is not only crisis. Africa is economic development. Africa is partnerships on the Millennium Development Goals agenda. Africa is a continent whose voice is needed when we define the road ahead after 2015. And I was very impressed by that, and we agreed to keep very close cooperation. And I think you would see now a balance of subjects in our conversations which will deal not only with the crisis but also more and more with the development challenge, which is so crucial for the future of not only this continent but the world today. I used to say when I was President of the General Assembly that there is no peace without development and no development without peace. and none of the above without the respect of human rights and the respect of rule of law. And this means that we have to work with peace, development, and human rights in parallel. If one of these pillars is weak, the whole structure is weak. And therefore, there is an interrelationship which must be translated in how we work. This is what we are struggling with in the United Nations, to take down these walls between us so that we translate this basic axiom, basic rule to the work also in our daily life. Because it is when we get that dynamics between the work on peace, development, and rule of law and human rights that we really achieve results. And this requires new thinking and new approaches. And I think the RCM could be also another tool in bringing this dynamics into our work so that we can deliver to the people who are expecting us to deliver. If we don't, if we who are involved in international relations do not deliver good solutions, good formulas, then people will look inside and feel frustration about the international cooperation, international organizations. We therefore have an extremely important duty to make sure that we come to the conclusion that in fact the good international solution, whether it is in migration or in climate or in organized crime, all those good international formulas that we need to negotiate, they must in the end be seen to be in the national interest. This is our duty, to make such good solutions, produce such good formulas that they are seen as being in the national interest. That's when we square the equation and take away the false artificial line between national and international. In today's world, we cannot look inward. We have to cooperate. And the stronger we make that relationship, the safer the world will be. And that's why this relationship between the African Union and United Nations is so crucial. In fact, we should recognize that it is actually charter-based. I always carry the charter in the pocket. I don't know whether you know that here is a chapter called Regional Arrangements. 1945, these geniuses who wrote this charter realized that regional arrangements was part of a good international order. And in fact, it says here in Chapter 8 that first we should solve our problems regionally, and then we should turn to the global, to connect the regional and the global. It's a fantastic vision that they had. And we are here now, 2012, to make sure that that becomes more and more of a reality. This was far too long an introduction. I now go to my formal presentation, but it's great to be with you, and I'm very, very happy to be here today. I will now make my points about the RCM, which I think is crucial for the coherent delivery of UN support to the African Union, to the new Partnership for Africa's Development, and the continent's regional economic communities. Our objective here is to ensure that the RCM and its clusters are as effective as possible in promoting peace, development, human rights, the rule of law in Africa. Our first priority must be common work on the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. And here we have the MDG acceleration framework and the recommendations of the MDG Africa Steering Group as our guides. You all know that. But the MDGs are just a stepping stone on a longer journey to truly sustainable, equitable development that is lasting and leaves no one behind. Beyond 2015, we need a development framework that will build on where the MDGs have been successful, remedy where we have fallen short, and provide a roadmap for a long-term strategy. A development framework that will bring out the full potential of Africa for the benefit of all Africans. Over the past decade, many African countries have achieved significant economic growth, often averaging more than 5% per annum. The continent has also shown remarkable resilience in the face of the triple crisis of food, energy and finance, which hit the global economy from 2007 and 2008. There is legitimate and growing optimism about the strength of African economies and the notion of Africa as a hub of global growth. In this age of global economic uncertainty, the challenge Africa faces post-2015 is how to continue growing and at the same time develop sustainably. This means working for less poverty, better health, less vulnerability, more resilience, jobs creation, a huge task for us, sustainable incomes, as well as food, nutrition, and water security, a sound environmental base for the future. It means also commitment to peace and security, to good governance, which to me is good institutions and good infrastructure, and the rule of law, of course. And I want to say very strongly, empowered women and young people who have hopes for the future. It's our huge task that we have ahead of us. And therefore, I welcome the focus of this meeting on an African perspective to the post-2015 development agenda. And by the way, I'm very glad to have here with us Amina Mohammed, who has a special responsibility to work with the post-2015 perspective, also as a member of our high-level panel. The delivery of new framework for post-2015 is ultimately the prerogative of the member states. But it is the UN system's responsibility to provide member states with the best available information and basis for decision-making. The Secretary General has established a multi-layered consultation process for a post-2015 UN development agenda. The regional commissions are an important part of this process, and we count on your contributions. It is essential that Africa's voice is heard and the continent's needs and priorities considered, both in the post-2015 process and in the development of the Sustainable Development Goals agreed by member states at Rio +20. The General Assembly is still debating the formation of this intergovernmental working group, but I hope that they get started this month. The United Nations is committed to supporting this through capacity building assistance to African regional, sub-regional national interests. And here, by the way, I also want to remind you that the Secretary General reinstated the Special Advisor for Africa, and I'm glad we have Under Secretary General Maged Abdelaziz here with us today. It's imperative that we work together to strengthen the RCM and its Secretariat and all the work that you're doing. And I thank those of you, many of you here, including, I hope I don't miss anyone out here, but ILO, UNDP, UNEP, UNESCO, ANFPA, who have committed resources to the Secretariat in the past. And of course, I thank the Economic Commission for Africa to host the RCM-Africa Secretariat over the years. It's now important to ensure that the mechanism gets sustained, continuous and predictable backing it needs. To that end, we will strive to strengthen institutional support for the RCM at the highest level by, for instance, featuring it on the agenda of the Chief Executive Board, CEB. And here, let me tell you also that the CEB, at its last meeting last week, agreed to put the MDG achievement on the agenda until 2015, adding half a day to all the meetings of the Chief Executive's Board, where we are to report on progress or possibly lack of progress on the MDGs. And this was at the proposal of the new president of the World Bank, Mr. Jim Kim, Dr. Jim Kim. And I want to say to you that we have a growing new, qualitatively interesting new development of the cooperation with the World Bank, with a great emphasis on MDGs and a great emphasis not least on health, where the new president of the World Bank has special interest. So here is a new element which could also have concrete effects on the field in the end. And now that you and we have developed a concrete plan for the UN 10-year capacity building program for the African Union and NEPAD, it is essential to mobilize predictable and steady resources to implement this program. Finally, I wish to congratulate the African Union, about something I learned this morning, namely that you have now obtained 15 ratifications for the 2009 AU Internally Displaced Persons Kampala Conventions. This is extremely important and very gratifying to note. Swaziland was the latest country to have ratified the convention in November 2000, now 6th of November, just recently, this year, of course. And this is a major achievement with the AU having obtained these ratifications within 4 years. I wish to salute the cooperation between the UN and the AU Commission to make this ratification happen, and all of you have contributed. Thank you very much, and we commit to supporting the AU and member states towards the implementation of the convention. So my message to you is clear and simple. Let us deliver as one for Africa. Let us make this mechanism a living mechanism, a mechanism that makes a difference for the people that we are here to help and to serve. Thank you very much.